everybody, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the Torah portion this week with Coffee with My Friends. We're sitting around the table again in our kitchen, and we have our friend Lois.
Finished half of our first cup of coffee, but anyway.
We're already drinking coffee. So Lois is here,
Hi.
and Scott, of course. So we're going to take a look at this Torah portion, and we're going to kind of keep it more conversational as opposed to less teaching, I guess, and more. We want you guys to have an opportunity to see what it's like to sit and just midrash on a Torah portion. So it's really fun.
That's an important point. This is not teaching. We're just midrashing, discussing, and might give you some ideas on what kind of study helps. And we're batting ideas around. Now we've vetted them a little bit before we actually talk to you, but not that much. And so this is what midrash is all about.
Yeah. So when we say something weird, don't shoot us, okay? So where we are right now, we're studying the story of Balak. It's Parashah 40, which is Numbers 22, verse 2 through 25:9. And we're going to kind of look at Balak, the story of Balak and Balaam. Everybody kind of knows the story of Balaam's ass, or Balaam's donkey. I can't say that. Might have to edit that one. So actually what we're going to do, remember we're talking about in the wilderness, and we're looking at prophetic patterns for the restoration during the second Exodus. And in the book of Numbers we can see all these prophetic foreshadowing of what the second Exodus is going to be like. So what I did was I started out here real quick. We're going to review some of the things we've learned in the book of Numbers. So I put this in a timeline, and we'll go through, so it's kind of easy to do it. On the top is the book of Numbers up here, and the different things we have covered in these Torah portions. And then at the bottom is its equivalent in the second Exodus, or the final gathering. So we started out with the numbering of the camp of Israel, so developing the camp surrounding the tabernacle in the wilderness, and that I would equate to the second Exodus. Then we have the story of leprosy, the cup of bitterness, which is the adulterous woman, and the requirements for a Nazirite, or a Nazir. And I would equate that to the judgment and division of adulterous Israel, which we'll see. When you see that a lot in Revelation, where God is judging his people and cleansing them from uncleanness, and also having to go through the adulterous woman, the cup of bitterness. So you see that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. After that was the dedication of the tabernacle, and I think we're going to see a reconstruction of the tabernacle in the wilderness again. Then we saw the silver trumpets and the story of the quail, which is, quail we saw meant a desire for ease, right? We see in Revelation, we see the trumpet judgments. So there's that equivalence there. We had the 12 spies. We went through that one. And we saw in that one where if you look at the Hebrew names, you see the order of events in the end of days, and referencing the 144,000. Then we had the story of Korah, which was encroachment in that time period. We'll also see encroachment in the time period of the gathering, which I think relates to the earthquake of Zechariah 4 and Revelation chapter 6. So when you encroach on God's holy things, it kicks everything off in a way. And then finally, last week, we saw the red heifer, the water from the rock, and the bronze serpent. And what we'll see is God starts to cleanse his people. So the red heifer is the water of cleansing from uncleanness. So again, the people will have to be cleansed and judged in the wilderness. Water from the rock alludes to Yeshua's second coming, and that we are to walk, speaking out instead of striking. So the first time Yeshua came, he was stricken for our sins. Second time when he comes, it's through speaking, and the importance of speaking. And then the serpent we saw was the evil speech, which is Lashon Hara, which I think is kind of where we are right now. We're just having such a trouble with that. So anyway, that's where we are. Now we're coming from that. That's last week. We're getting now into Balak. And in Balak, what we're going to cover today, of course, we know the story of Balaam's donkeys. Balaam's donkey and what happens there. We'll just look at the prophetic implication of that. Scott's going to show us kind of where this is happening in maps, and so we can see kind of where this is going to happen again. And then we see who Balaam was. He was a sorcerer, and allowing sorcery or enchantment into the believers, into the fellowship. And then finally it ends with the final temptation, and we get into the story of Phinehas or Pinchas, and it ends with that. So that's kind of what we're going to cover today. All right, so Scott's going to give us kind of an overview of where we are right now on these maps. Right? Cool.
Thank you very much. So it's going to be important. Teresa puts when we put this up on YouTube, Teresa puts the slides up and make them available, and I'm going to actually need you to go to those slides, please, because it'll really help you out a lot. Lois, can you see the slide pretty much? So, slide 1. They've moved from Petra, down in the south, up to the area around Amman right now. And it's really, if you try to research this stuff, you find out it's very difficult to find where was it then and where is it now, and the archaeologists battle over stuff. But more or less, they were down around Petra. They've moved up to in the area near Amman, and we know they're up in that area because they're right across from Dan, they're right across from Jericho. That's 135 miles or so between Amman or between Petra and Amman. So they're out in that area. Teresa, go to slide 2, please. We're going to talk today about Moab and Ammon are going to be important. And they're down in the area, in that light-colored area across the river from Jericho. That's more or less where the story appears today. And this map comes from the kingdom of Ammon and the kingdom of Moab later on in Israel's history. But the Moabites were to the south, the Ammonites were to the north, and the Moabites were Lot's older son, which there you're having trouble actually defining or clarifying what those two names mean. But this is Lot's older son, and it can mean either who's your father or water of the father. Interesting. And they don't know for sure, but check that out. And then the Ammonites are the younger son of Lot, and they're the son of my mother. That's also very interesting. We're not going to dig into that stuff right now, but think about that. So it's who's your father or water your father and son of my mother? Anyway, those are the guys in that area. In Numbers 21:21, which is last week's, that it says, Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, and said, "Let me pass through your land. We won't turn aside into fields or vineyards. Won't drink any water from the wells. We'll go along the king's highway till we've left your territory." Sihon wouldn't agree, sent people out to fight. And so the Israelites fought him, and they won. Teresa, go to slide 3, please. And they ended up taking everything between the Jabbok River and the Arnon River. You can see the Jabbok River. It's got up toward the top of the slide. It's got an arrow pointing on it. The Arnon's hard to find, but see the word Moab on the very bottom of your screen, and then you see Arnon River right next to that. So they took that whole area between that blue line on the bottom of the screen and that line on the top of the screen, the blue line on the top of the screen. So that's the area that they took when they beat Sihon. Okay, now remember that they beat Sihon. So go to slide 4, please. This one, now the next is they're going to go and have a battle with Og. And this is still in last week's Torah portion. They have a battle with Og. And see Bashan up at the top? They went up there and fought him up there. And so then they came back down into the area, but north of the Moabites, and they were settled in that area in there. So they've been, they beat Sihon, then they went north and they beat Og. And that's 20-something miles up there. They didn't go that far to go up there. So remember, there's 1.5 million folks. I'm not sure exactly how many of them were warriors at that point in time. But they've just had some pretty basic battles. Things to remember in Numbers 21:25, it said that after they defeated Sihon, that they lived in the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and all its surrounding towns. Heshbon was the capital. One thing about the Amorites, there's discussion over who exactly they were, but they were the sons of Canaan, which is son of Ham, and or the Egyptians showed them as fair-skinned, warlike mountaineers, and there's another school of thought that thinks they came from were from the Phoenician areas. So not sure. Again, that's fascinating when you get into the archaeological aspects of it. There's some folks if you take Scripture as your base, then you run sideways with some other human thought, but that's something for each one of us to battle through. But one thing I thought was really interesting was that the Amorites held land all the way down into the Hebron area. And you see on the map we've got up right now, if you go to the left-hand side of the screen, just to the right of where that big Philistines area is, there's Hebron down there. Those are the southern hills of Judah. The Amorites, at that point in time, Amorites, same guys, they held the land all the way down into that area. Remember that at this point in time, the geopolitical definitions were different. And we think of the land of Israel at the Jordan. Well, no, the Amorites were in control all the way down into Hebron, down on that whole side. So when the Israelites went in, they took a portion of the Amorite land, not the whole thing. So we've got the Israelites encamped, right? It says that they camped in the chapter 22:1. They camped in the plains of Moab, opposite Jericho. So if we look at our map here, this particular map does not show Jericho, does it? Oh yeah, there it is. It's right.
It's above the Dead Sea.
It's above the Dead Sea, exactly. It's down the Jordan Valley. If you look at the word Amorites, it's to the left, across the Jordan River, there's Jericho right there. So they're camped between Heshbon and Jericho in there, okay? So that's where the whole 1.5 million folks are. What happens? Now, finally, go to slide 5. We, in chapter 22, which is today's portion, we finally open and it says, people of Israel traveled on, camped in the plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan River, opposite Jericho. There we go. Now, so the king of Moab, Balak, is concerned because they've just had these the Israelites have just had these great battles. So he gets a hold of the Midianites also, and they talk, and they send leaders to go speak to Balaam, and he's like 400 miles away. 400 miles away? Yeah, and Teresa talked about that. He was a big deal at that point in time. He was a sorcerer. Everybody knew about him. He mounted journeyed all the way down into Egypt. And so he was a big deal. This was a known guy that could help him out. And it's interesting just to note on this map, some things to note are, see Haran there? We've got, see Haran. As far as I can tell from some really quick study, the hometown of Balaam was just south of there. That blue line south of Haran is the Euphrates River. The one to the north of Haran is the Tigris River. And so he was there, and they had to go, so look, they had to come down from the Euphrates through Damascus, all the way down to, you see where Moab is sort of to the right of Jerusalem down in there. Don't follow those arrows. But they had to go 400 miles. Remember, it's more than one trip. They went up, talked to him. He said, nah, I don't think so. Then they went home, and Balak said, nah, we got to get him. So they went back up again. So it took a while to set this whole thing up, to set this story up. And then, go to slide 6, Therese. Yeah, related in this story, the Pisgah, they're in the Pisgah range. This talks about they stand up in the Pisgah range and look down over all the tribes of Israel. Also, Nebo was where Moses was taken up to see into the land, and that's where he died. Go to the next slide, please. Slide 7. This is the view slide. Now look at this. This is really interesting, and I picked this one because this is a picture from Nebo, apparently, looking out. The thing I want you to note, and I don't know if you can see it that clearly, but it says, that first line down the bottom right-hand corner of the little plaque here says Qumran, 25 kilometers. Well, Qumran is across the Jordan, just north of the Dead Sea, about the same distance as it is to Jericho. 25 kilometers is like 13 miles. So we're talking like 13 miles. You stuff 1.5 million people into a less than 13-mile area because they're down in the plains. You can see all these folks down in there. And obviously, later on, Moses is going to be able to go up there. He never, after these battles, he never left. He went up back, he looked out, and then he was taken. So he could see out into the land. I've always wondered about, so what did it look like when we looked out in the land? Well, you can easily see 30 miles. We're from California, and if you're standing on the coast on a clear day, you can see Catalina, and it's 26 miles away. You can clearly see out into the land, and Bethlehem is 50 kilometers, 35 miles. You could clearly see that far. So anyway, that's sort of a visual of an idea of what Balaam and Balak might have seen when they looked down into the valley. And then go to the last one. We're going to end today with in the end of chapter 20. I don't know my sheet right there. At the end of chapter 20, or at the beginning of chapter 25, it says Israel stayed at Shittim. There the people began whoring with the women of Moab. Okay, they came in, beat Sihon, beat Og. Balaam came, tried to curse them, couldn't do it, blessed them, whatever. And they're in this plain, see Shittim over to the right, over there on the slide? They're in this plain, all camped out, and they start hanging out with the Moabite women. Eventually, they're going to cross the Jordan, head to Gilgal and Jericho, and you can see, remember, Shittim and Jericho are less than 15 miles apart. So that's how the story is set up today. One, they have the wars. King of the Moabites gets concerned, sends for Balaam. Balaam comes in, does his thing, and then at the end of the story today, they're camped down in the plains, ready to go into Jericho. And there you go.
Wow.
Wow, yeah.
That was cool.
I have one question that, so you said that, so when Balak, or Balaam traveled to see Balak, it was how many miles?
400 miles.
Okay, and he did it more than once.
Well, no, he went once. The leaders went up and talked to him and went, will you come? And he said, no, I won't. And he talked to Adonai, and Adonai said, no,
Right.
go. So they went home. They came back.
Right, but there was more than one trip. I mean, there were
Yeah,
trips.
that's the second trip. And
So how many days would you say it would take
they're
them?
saying like between 3 weeks and a month to
Okay.
get,
Okay.
so trip one, the guys go up, talk to Balaam, doesn't work, go back. So there's probably like 2 months there. And again, this is Midrash. I'm not teaching this. This is Midrash from what I've found in my extensive study of about an hour. And then there's trip two. And who knows how long there was in between when they got back to Balak and when it didn't work. So then they go back up again. And it takes them another 3 weeks or a month to get back up there. And they go, come on, come with us. So he talks to Adonai, and Adonai, and you can talk about that, where Adonai, lets him do it the second time. Probably didn't want him to, but lets him do it. So he comes back down. But remember, if the Egyptians knew about him, and you can talk about
Yeah,
this,
we talked about the back.
he's made the trip a couple times, and this is only part of the way. I mean, if you roll back to slide 1, Therese, and just if you go back to slide 1, we're in the area of Ammon right now. See the left-hand corner of the screen, there's Egypt over there. He's like maybe half the way, so what is it, a 900-mile trip or something like that? To 800 or 900-mile trip, and he's going to get into Egypt. So these guys, it was a big investment to go do this. But anyway, yeah, a month going up, talked to him, didn't work, went home, go back up another month, and he said, okay, comes back down 2 months, and then he's got to get ready to go. So, they're camped for a while, and think about it, you're the king of Moab. You're looking down on these guys all the time going, wow, what are they going to do? What's going on? And they're in camp. They're living in the cities of Heshbon, okay? You can see they're in the cities of Heshbon and go, we've got these guys living in our land now what do we do? And so he gets Balaam to come in and talk to them. But they're sort of established. They've been there a couple months. And this is probably part of the reason why Reuben, Gad, and half-tribe Manasseh said, we like it here. They got used to living there. And so then when Balaam comes in, and I have no idea how long they end up, living down in Shittim, and that's where the whole priest Pinchas thing shows up, where we get next week, we end up with, but they'd been there for a while. They had enough time to form relationships with the Moabites and all kinds of stuff. So I think it's really helpful for us to, the time frames and the locations and all that sort of stuff. These aren't just mythical characters, magical characters. These are real people with real feelings, actually trying to work something out. And Balak was obviously scared because he went down and got the Midianites, which are all the way down in Esau's land, down in Edom, and he went down and got the Midianites to come on up and help him out. So the Midianites and the Moabites went and talked to Balaam. It was a big deal. And talk about the fact that Jethro and the Midianites, Jethro was another possible had a relationship with Balaam. They knew each other. So.
The thing that really hit me, and especially in this, the first map you have, is that actually is supposed to be the whole land of Israel. Because right now we still, in modern thinking, we still think it's cut off with the Jordan River, like you said. But in reality, God promised that whole area, all the way down into Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be all Israel. So God's promised that land to them. Really good.
Yeah,
Good
that's,
background info.
it's always interesting to know time, to me, distance and time and, because when you read it, it just seems like, oh, they went there and they went there and they went there, and you don't think about the actual.
But again, remember this, if in part of the way we got began our Hebrew roots studies were sort of like, let's try to think like Hebrews. And if you're a Hebrew, when you said they went from X to X, they went, okay,
Yeah,
they got it. If they, if Balak had to go up there and get Balaam, okay, and they got it. They knew their own geography. I mean, whatever state you're in, whatever area you're in, if you pick city 1 and city 2, you know the geography in between, how far apart they are, how long it takes to get in a car or whatever. They do the same thing in their area. They got it. And so I just try to make it real from a physical perspective. And again, stuff goes around. It's cyclical. And then if you start looking toward what might happen in the future, if you look at a horizontal gathering rather than a vertical rapture, and you come back to the land, what might happen if the land was going to be physically taken over again, and if there was a physical transition where armies had to battle, how might that work? If folks went back in to take over the land, might they go back in at Jericho? That last slide I showed Gilgal, temporary, it says right there, temporary headquarters of Joshua, and he, launched his all kinds of military battles out of that area. But there it is. There's only 2 bridges, into the land. One's further north, but this is the one near the Allenby Bridge. This is a crossing of the Jordan River. For millennium. This is where they've crossed the river. So
Yeah. There's a lot in prophecy about Gilgal. It means like the whirlwind. Yeah. Cool. All right, with that background, we're going to take a look at the story of Balak. And as you can see in this slide, it's Balak's name implies he's a destroyer or a devastator. So in a sense, he's like a type of Satan. He's also the destroyers of Israel, the enemies of Israel. It's the spirit of Amalek. So all of those things. And it's also the story of Balaam. And that's the one we're most familiar with. But Balak is really important too. So let's start out reading the beginning of this. It's Numbers 22, starting at verse 2. Now Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorite. Moab was very afraid of the people because there were so many of them. Moab was overcome with dread because of the people of Israel. So Moab said to the leaders of Midian, "This horde will lick up everything around us the way an ox licks up grass in the field." Balak the son of Zippor was king of Moab at that time. He sent messengers to Balaam the son of, or it's actually Balaam, the son of Beor at Petor by the Euphrates River in his native land, to tell him, "Listen, a people has come out of Egypt, spread over all the land, and settled down next to me. Therefore please come and curse this people for me, because they are stronger than I am. Maybe I will be able to strike them down and drive them out of the land. For I know that whoever you bless is in fact blessed, and whoever you curse is in fact cursed." And so let's stop right there real quick and look at who Balak and Balaam are. So, for example, like we just said, but Balak was destroyer, devastator. And he's the son of Zippor, which is a little bird.
Make sure that they know what slides you're on.
This is slide number 12. If you're going through the slides, it's number 12. So he's the devastator of the little bird, and he's the person who wants to lay waste to the land, which also, who's that implying? In the end of days, it's our Antichrist figure, anti-Messiah figure. Kind of self-explanatory. He's coming out of Moab, like Scott was saying. Balaam means either not the people, or it means he's not the people.
Okay.
So if you think of this, you think of, I think it's in Hosea, where it says, I will call my people not a people, lo ami, and then they will become my people when I redeem them back. At this point, this is still Balaam, not the people. So these are the people that really, I don't know that they've gotten redeemed back from a prophetic viewpoint. And he's the son of Beor, which means burning or brutish.
Well, let's say that, after they cross, remember, they get circumcised, or did they get circumcised on the cross? Remember, they haven't been recircumcised yet.
Right, they have.
Still coming up. So
That's
you
still
could
coming up.
say that they're not the people yet.
Well, Balaam is not the people.
Well, Balaam's definitely not the people, but the people themselves are not the people yet.
The people are not the people.
The people are not the people. So nobody's the people at
Nobody's
this
the
point.
people
There
at
are no
this
people.
So Balaam, he's a sorcerer. He's an enchanter, a soothsayer. And the thing about Balaam, the book of Jasher talks about the consultants to the king of Pharaoh, the Pharaoh, consultants of Pharaoh. There were 3 of them that were main consultants. One of them they think was Balaam, or Jasher says was Balaam. Another one was Jethro. And the third one was Job.
So we would put in a
Interesting.
major caveat here. Don't worry about looking at Jasher. There may be some historical context there that might put it in perspective. This is not scripture, but we're saying that's interesting historical context, and at least in this story, we do see a tie between Balaam and potentially Jethro because of Midian. So,
Yeah. So think about that. Balaam had already told Pharaoh to throw the babies in the water, apparently, and Jethro gave him that same advice, as did Job. They were the ones who gave him the advice to throw the babies in the water, apparently.
so there's a school of thought that says because Job gave that advice, his kids were killed. Again, it may or not be historically accurate.
And maybe why Jethro turned around and went back. So Balaam apparently has a history of being against the people of Israel. He was, the idea of being a sorcerer back there, if you look at the ancient Near East, a sorcerer of that time period in the ancient Near East would do divining. So they would read the stars. They would read cloud formations, which I thought was interesting. They would read livers. They would interpret dreams.
Hopefully, livers taken out of people.
Well, that's why they would sacrifice an animal on an altar, and they would
They take
read
the
it.
liver and bring the liver in.
divine. Oh.
Yeah, that's what they were doing. So as opposed to the way that God set up, Yahweh set up his sacrifice system, you sacrifice the animal separate from the altar, take out the liver and all the entrails, and burned them. It was completely opposite from the way the diviners did it. That's what he wanted. He wanted to make sure there was a separation between they did it, because they read the liver and the entrails.
Our opinion is that Yah had set up the sacrificial system. It got perverted with all the other versions of religion that were out there. There were sophisticated versions. They had their own sacrificial systems, whatever. And then when God gave Torah more formally to Moses, set it up, it was then in opposition to other sacrificial systems, and people had to go back to learning how to sacrifice accurately because all the other folks had perverted it.
Yeah, sacrificing to gods. The other thing that was interesting in the ancient Near Eastern idea of these sorcerers is that they would do these magic spells to try to change their god's mind.
Right. That's interesting.
And yeah, you actually kind of see a lot of these same things, I hate to say this, in today's modern day church, where people are allowing some of this magical thinking. It's just looking like a magical church, where they're interpreting cloud formations, they're reading the stars, they're trying to interpret the future by looking at the stars. Because we're not supposed to really try to interpret the future or predict the future with the stars and the heavenly signs. They're just
That's
signs
what
of
they do.
repentance. But yeah, it's very popular right now.
Well, and books of numerology and,
Yeah.
you know, all those things that are, some of them seem innocent, like it's no big deal, or, but, you know, when you look at what they're really doing, it's same with like names. I've seen this book that told all about names and like how people are a certain way because of their name. It's sort of like that mystical, and it sounds innocent enough to start with, but you start getting into that, it's very dangerous territory.
It really is. It's getting into divination.
So let's say that you've got, God set it up and said, here it is. Let's just say, here's a scenario, a paradigm. Let's just say that God set it up, and then God expanded on it, elucidated, clarified, defined. Yeshua came and said, here's what I set up, and that's what this whole thing is. And so if we look at it and God said, this is how my kingdom runs, then we talked about how his kingdom runs. And so what we have, and that's scriptural, that's a basis for us to stand on and be safe in. And if we start doing this other stuff, probably for a while it's safe, but where's the line when all of a sudden you run into error and you don't even know it?
Right.
Because it's all about this new revelation stuff, and it is the magical thinking thing where you don't, you know, all of a sudden you're off into error and don't even know it.
Right.
Yeah, you could actually get a word from the Lord and prophesy about something and be right. And then assume you're going to be right every time.
Yeah.
And if you don't have 100% accuracy, no, you're not a prophet. But there does tend to be the prophetic aspect to the church today, even in the Messianic movement, where once you hit one right, you think you're a prophet, so you can go be wrong, right. There's another right. So you just keep doing it. And the thing that really hit me was in Revelation chapter 9. I'm going to go there real quick. There's a warning to the church in the end of days. This is Revelation 9 and verse 20. And in context, this is the end of the trumpet judgments, right? So God has just done all the trumpet judgments and released the horses with the snakes with heads, snake heads. So verse 20, the rest of mankind, those who were not killed by these plagues, even then they did not turn from what they had made with their own hands. They did not stop worshiping demons and idols made of gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood, which cannot see or hear or walk, so that's idol worship. Nor did they turn from their murdering, involvement with the occult, or sorcery, basically, with drugs and their sexual immorality and their stealing. Now the story we have today is three of these main things. Idolatry, so it's a worship of another god. It's sorcery, which is mentioned in here, and sexual immorality. And again, you see these things have been interwoven into the church. Yeah. So God is, I think the trumpet judgments is God's judgment on his people to make them to encourage them to turn and repent and get those things out of their life. Because that's the connection I see there. Any thoughts? How about you guys? Any thoughts? Email me if you have thoughts. Okay. So we'll go on and look a little bit at the Hebrew in this. One of the other things that was interesting was that he sent messengers, and the word there is Balak, which is an angel. So there are messengers or angels. Sometimes they're actual angels. Sometimes they're just a messenger. Oftentimes they're a priest. The priest is the messenger. Or it could be the priest is an angel. So it could be any one of those things. Let's see. So what happens now? Let's see. Where are we? And so he encouraged them down. I'm going to go jump down here to verse 12. the messengers are trying to encourage Balaam to go with them. So God answered Balaam, "You are not to go with them. You are not to curse the people because they are blessed." And this is something that Lisa sent to me in an email that I was looking at real quick. Because Lisa couldn't be here, so she sent us a few things that she thought was really cool. The word there for "with them" is the Hebrew word im, I-M. And it implies the idea of being with somebody. Not physically, but yeah, I'm with you, buddy.
Yeah, right.
And don't be with them.
Behind you.
Yeah, yeah. Then he goes on again, and a little bit farther on, he says, he went with them again. This is jump up to verse 20. And God came to Balaam during the night and said to him, "If the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you." And that's a different Hebrew word. That's the oat, E-T-H, the oat. And that's the implication of go with them physically, but don't be with them.
Another thing that I kind of noticed was in verse 13. After God said, "Do not go with them, you must not put a curse on these people because they are blessed." And the next morning Balaam got up and said to Balak's princes, "Go back to your own country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." That really was a lie. That isn't exactly what the Lord told him to do. It's just like with Eve. I mean, there's always that little bit of twist in the truth that
Yeah,
that we insert.
yeah.
You know, that whole section then between 15 and 20. They went back, and then they came back, and Balaam answered the service of Balak. Even if Balak were to give me his palace filled with gold, silver and gold, I can't go beyond the word of Adonai, my God. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
To do anything great or small. Now, please stay here tonight so I can see what else Adonai will say to me. Well, what? Is he thinking he changed his mind, or what's he do? Well, you're talking about they sometimes try to change their mind. He told him once,
yeah.
no.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he keep pressing on it? So he went back, and so God came to him during the night and said, "If they've come to summon you, get up and go with them, but only do what I tell you to do." So yeah, he let him go, and no, I don't know the answer to this. Did God change his mind? Not sure. Did God know how this was going to work? Yes. Exactly how did that whole thing play out? But, and it worked. Israel got blessed, but Balaam, you'd think if God told you no once, you wouldn't have brought it up again. Like when your parents say, don't argue with them and bring it up again.
But we
brought
do.
it up again.
We do. And how many times in our own lives do we try to change God's mind? And we kind of do our own thing, and He sort of makes it okay.
Well, He allows
us to do
go
it.
do our own thing and
then
uses it for His own good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you see that unfolding here. But that's just human nature, is to try to get your way somehow, finagle it.
I've done that before, actually. Okay, God, let me try this. Please, can I just try this and see if it works? Okay, you're not going to like it.
No, I've never done this. That's not something I do.
Oh.
Right, move before the lightning hits.
Now, I think the key thing is in the very next verse, in verse 21, it says, "So Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab." That word goes back to im again.
Mm-hmm.
He joins with them.
Mm-hmm.
So God told him, don't join with them. You can go with them physically, but don't join with them. And he does it anyway. He joined with them. That's what the key is there. That was pretty interesting. Then we get into the story of Balaam's donkey. Let's see. God's anger flared up because he went, and the angel of Adonai stationed himself on the path to bar his way, mine says, but actually in the Hebrew as a satan to him. Mm-hmm. So God sets up an angel to bar his path as a Satan, or a satan, an adversary. And
or to oppose instead of oppose.
The adversary opposes him, goes opposite him. Mm-hmm. And there's there would be a great discussion on, we think of Satan as the author of all evil, and there's this evil being, right? Mm-hmm. But in a sense, the Satan, or the Satan, is just the adversary. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Somebody who opposes. Mm-hmm. So different, you can act as an adversary to somebody to oppose them. In this case, the angel did it, which is kind of interesting. Now we get into the story of Balaam's donkey. Now, this is where I'm going to pull in a prophetic little tidbit. It's a pearl.
Oh, yay!
Animals have meaning, like trees have meaning, and animals have meaning in prophetic thought. And typically, a donkey can be either a chamor, which is a male donkey, like a mule kind of a donkey. Typically, that represents somebody who's difficult to deal with. Oftentimes, it refers to the enemies of Israel, a chamor. Today, it might be modern Islam.
I wonder if that's the same word that was used for Ishmael, wild donkey of a man.
Yeah, a wild donkey. It's that kind of a donkey. This donkey that Balaam's riding is a female donkey. It's the tone. And they're gentle and they ride, they're easy to ride with, easy to work with. Typically, this is the donkey that Yeshua rode on. This is the next slide. And if you look at it in prophetic media, a donkey would be messianic believers who bring Messiah in.
Which slide?
I don't know the number on this slide. I can't see the number on it. Let me see. Number 13.
Remember, tell them what we're
Slide number 13. You see the picture of Yeshua here coming in on a donkey. And that's the gentle donkey, the young female donkey. And that oftentimes in prophetic literature refers to Messianic believers who keep Torah and who carry Yeshua with them. So what we have here is we have Balaam. And remember what his name means. He's the sorcerer who's riding the Messianic believer to go do something that he's really not supposed to do, but he's figured out he's going to do it anyway. So that in mind, let's look at some of the other from prophecy things in here. This is continue on this verse 22. He was riding his donkey and his 2 servants were with him. Again, anytime you see 2, you're thinking of the 2 houses, right? It says 2 servants. The donkey saw the angel of Adonai standing on the road, drawn sword in hand, so the donkey turned off the road into the field. And the field in the end days is always usually Isaac walks in the field, Messiah is walking in the field. It's the time when they're going out and inspecting the fruit or the wheat. So it's being in the field. So you get a little bit of prophetic in that. And Balaam had to beat the donkey to get it back on the road. So here, the Messianic believer is trying to stop this sorcery, the magical church, kind of, from going forward by getting him off into the harvest or the field part of it. And he beats him and gets him back on. And he's going to do harm to Israel. That's what he's going to do. Then the angel of Adonai stood in the road where it became narrow as it passed among the vineyards. So you think the timeline is getting narrow. And it's getting harder and harder to go in the end of days. It's getting more narrow. And when you get into a vineyard, you're getting into the summer grape harvest. And that Israel's the vineyard, the church is the vineyard, America the end time vineyard, which we've talked about before. And you get this whole idea of a vineyard. And the donkey is trying to stop him from going down this narrow path and getting killed by the angel who's trying to block him from Balaam harming his people. Now what we can see today, if we look at this in today's world, a lot of there's 2 sides to the modern day church. There's the side that supports Israel and the side that doesn't support Israel. And you see the BDS movement, which is the BDS movement are people who are boycotting. It's boycott and divestment, but they're boycotting Israel. And they're supporting the Palestinian cause and saying Israel is, evil. So there's that side of the church. A lot of the church actually supports that.
So I'm just going to insert something real quickly here. We're not going to fall into this rabbit hole, but organizationally, that is the church. The question would be for each one of us to ponder on our own, in our own time, is that God? So there is, I would say, my opinion, personal opinion, don't even know what these guys think, there's this split between God's church and what the organization has become. And we need to be careful about that.
Yeah. Actually, if you've seen the teaching on the Horses of Revelation, I talk about the 2 sides to the Christian church and the Jesus church. there's the side that supports Israel and the side that
Yeah.
fights against Israel. Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing here too. Okay? So we've got the donkey. This has stone walls on both sides. So verse 25, the donkey saw the angel Adonai pushed up against the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against the wall. Now, again, we have a pressing. We're into a press between stone walls. So we get down to what we call the dire straits, or the end of days where the path is super narrow. We're getting right down to it, right? So if we look at this prophetically, the Messianic church is trying to stop in the end of days, stop the magical church, the sorcery church that's mixed, from destroying Israel by crushing his foot. Now his foot would be he doesn't have right standing. The foot represents standing, it represents authority. Wherever you press your foot, there I will be. So he's trying to stop the authority of his church to harm Israel.
So let's take it back to the 2. And again, this is Midrash. It's not a teaching, this is Midrash. Let's take it back to the 2. And the 2 you've got, would you maybe have Ephraim trying to stop Judah from Judah related to Israel, and Ephraim trying to stop Judah from having their authority, their rightful position. In some cases, saying, no, we are the church, we have displaced you.
No, replacement theology?
It's now all about us, and so no, you need to think about the world the way we do, and it's all about us now.
Yeah.
Replacement theology.
Yeah, I can see the aspects of that in there. Yeah.
That
But
makes sense.
the other thing I can see, which I don't think we brought up really, was the idea of Balaam is a sorcerer. Okay, if you look at the Jewish people, they have like a sorcery side to them too, which is Kabbalah.
Kabbalah.
Yeah, that's the mystical side of Judaism.
It's because there is a spiritual world, and if
Right.
you explore it too much, you end up on that side, and that's a whole different conversation. But there really is a spiritual world, and these guys dealt with it all the time.
Yeah. So if we continue to look at the donkey as those who carry the Messiah, the donkey is the one who's trying to stop them from being destroyed by the angel, basically, just like warning them. Yeah.
Yes.
So he hits him again. He made him so angry. And then, let's see, where did we leave off? So he crushed his foot, he did it again, verse 26. The angel of Adonai moved ahead and stood in a place so tight that there was no room to turn either right or left. We're getting right down to the end of days. Again, the donkey saw the angel of the Adonai and laid down under Balaam, which made him so angry that he hit the donkey with a stick. So he refused to carry him anymore. He wasn't going to help him anymore. Adonai enabled the donkey to speak, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam said to the donkey, "It's because you've been making a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you on the spot." The donkey said to Balaam, "I am your donkey, right? You've ridden me all your life, right? Have I ever treated you like this before?" No, he admitted. Then Adonai opened Balaam's eyes so he could see the angel of Adonai standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand. And he bowed his head and fell on his face. So finally we get to a place that's so tight that the Messianic church can no longer warn Balaam anymore. You can't warn the people who are mixed with sorcery.
Right.
Whoever Balaam is, could be 2 aspects of it. Is it the church that's mixed with sorcery, or is it the Jewish people that are mixed with spirituality? Yes. Yeah. So they're trying to warn them. Now what this kind of says to me is that we have a responsibility. It's our responsibility as carriers of Messiah to stop Lashon Hara, to stop arguing with each other, to stop biting each other like we saw the serpents in the desert, to stop encroaching on God's holy things and come together and be this donkey. We have got to be the donkey, the gentle donkey that carries Yeshua and warns people who are mixing with sorcery. Otherwise they're going to get their heads cut off by the angel of the Lord.
Now, do you think that because Balaam was a sorcerer and he was used to mixing in demonic and spiritual things, he didn't react to the donkey speaking?
Good point. Yeah. Maybe
He
he
just
was.
talked to the donkey, as far as we can tell.
Yeah, he just kept talking to him.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't any, most people would stop and go, whoa.
Maybe he was used to
He was used to
spirits inhabiting physical bodies,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a big deal to him.
Yeah,
That's
it
true.
seems like that to me, that somehow in being a sorcerer and into all of that stuff, this wasn't like
Weird.
a wake up moment.
So here's a point Teresa and I were talking about this morning, and here's a little along that line. In the church, we've talked for years about, well, how come that happens in Africa and we never see it in the U.S. As
miracles
far
and
as
stuff?
miracles and all those sorts of things. And possibly, in my opinion, after all these years on that, is because we've been covered because we've been a godly nation. And we didn't see, because we had like a bubble over the U.S., and the spiritual opposition couldn't get in and get to us. And so we didn't have that other weird spiritual world. Anymore, since we talked about this before, but maybe since 2012 and since previous administrations have said, various things, not being a Christian nation and, all that stuff. And if we truly have, as a nation, moved ourselves away from, pushed God out of the schools, all that, taking down 10 Commandments, monuments, all that stuff. Is it that we're opening ourselves up to this spiritual kind of issue here in the U.S.? We're going to see more and more of it. And so check it out and see. Let's see in the next several years as to whether or not spiritual things sort of start happening in the U.S. and we talked about this last week, is some of the over-the-top reaction that we're getting about, political issues, just the emotional, hysteria almost. Where is that? Because we're starting to see some spiritual manifestation, and we're starting to see it in real life now. This spirituality is not something that's not there or only happened back in Bible days. It's always around. It's just that because of the U.S. was protected for a while, we didn't see it here. But here we go. When we are at the end of days, we're liable to see weird spiritual things happen in the U.S.
Yeah. I think you're right. Because the other thing I was thinking, sorcerers talk to the dead.
Right.
So they're kind of used to talking to weird stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing, I was going to bring up one thing real quick that Lisa had mentioned in her, she sent me a little bit of info on this section. He pointed out, in Hebrew thinking, the donkey crushing Balaam's foot implied that Balaam's walk was not good, because we see in Leviticus 21:18 and Deuteronomy 15:21 that one of the blemishes was being lame. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, that's a blemish. It kind of disqualifies him from serving as a priest. So he's lame.
Interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa.
Well, and then he says he's mad at the donkey because the donkey made a fool of him. But God makes a fool of Balaam.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the donkey.
It's not the donkey. It's God makes him a fool.
Yeah, that's a good point. If the donkey is the church holding to Yeshua and the Torah, we do get accused a lot of,
Well, it's funny, what popped into my head when you said that was that in the discussions we have with other folks, we get into disagreements. Whether it becomes an argument or not is up to us. But we have disagreements, but at the end of the day, and really it's just really I've come to a realization, they're not arguing or disagreeing with me. We spent lots of time going through this book and I'm just trying to every day understand what this book says. And maybe we're don't have it perfectly, but we put out there God says. As far as I can tell, after done a lot of study, this is what God says. And they disagree with what God says.
Right.
So God was empowering the donkey to say something, but it was God, it wasn't the donkey. Same thing, it's not us. We're the donkey. At this point in my career, I'm willing to be a donkey. If I could be God's mouthpiece, that's great. I don't care if I'm a donkey. So, but they disagree with us, and they think it's not us. It's God talking through us and trying to get the word out to his people,
Right.
to all people.
To all people.
And it's because this angel is going to slaughter them. if they
Yeah.
don't stop.
Something bad's gonna happen, guys. I'm trying to warn you.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, so the Lord, Adonai says that he can go ahead and keep going, only just do say what I tell you to. Tells him again. So Balaam went on, and then he gets to Balak.
Tell you what, I want to get another cup of coffee.
All right,
And,
take a break.
Can we take a break right there?
Yeah, take a break. We'll be right back.
All right, go grab your coffee, freshen up. See you in a minute.